is there a show or a book that you're currently reading or watching that you literally cannot stop and you're just constantly thinking? Because my friend's been telling me to watch Paradise and it's like on the list, but I haven't watched it yet, and my entire life is around this show. So I wanted to see if anyone has any books or movies or TV shows where they're like, I can't stop. I'm addicted.
So I actually just finished it, of course, because I have all the time in my hands. The John F. Kennedy Jr. love story. Yes. And I'm like, and then you go down the spiral rabbit hole of the Kennedys and just like hear about their stories and their tragedies. And like, I am just engulfed in that right now. And it's like also spins like, you know, it took place during the 90s too. So you see like all the 90s lore, and I'm like, I need to watch this again. And I'm very sad that I finished it. I really wish that there was like a part 2 or something like that.
I've seen a lot of people like digging into like 90s fashion again, and I'm all for it. I'm all for like the work outfit, and then your work going out top turns into your night going out top. Like I am living for that fashion again.
Yes.
Well, I was there the first time, so I still have stuff left over from then. It doesn't fit anymore, but I have it. I've been thinking a lot about a book that I really enjoyed that was called The Wedding. Oh, God, hold on. What was it called? The Wedding People. It was really fun. It's just like a kind of it's almost a rom-com too. I'm pretty immersed in those kinds of books right now just because that's what I'm writing. But it was really fun. So if you like that kind of book, it was a blast to read.
Oh my gosh. MJ, Andrea, are you reading anything or watching anything?
I'm currently reading Project Hail Mary. I gave it it's really good. The Martian is probably my favorite book ever, so I had high expectations for this book, but the audiobook would recommend if you're not like a science fiction girly. The audiobook is such a like fun, funny experience that
I keep hearing that
that's
really
what's
good.
Consuming.
Like the
He's
narrator.
really good, and apparently he like cold read the whole thing, which is really crazy to me. But he does a really good job of playing all the characters. So would recommend Project Hail Mary audiobook.
You might like Atmosphere. I'm listening to Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid right now, and I don't necessarily love the narrator of it, but it's about NASA. It's about these women. It's women, like early women astronauts. Like it is fiction, but it's very good. You might like it.
Check it out.
Adds to TBR. That's just like
I know.
I know.
I have I'm about to start the rom-comers. I've got it on my desk here, and then I also am currently reading, and I've never read it before, Pride and Prejudice. And I'm like, I need to like learn how to read smart books. You know what I mean? Like books that are written for like something to like attentively read. Like I'm like, I gotta get like a list of characters going here. Like it's like I feel like I'm bad at reading classics, and I need to. You know,
that's where audiobooks are great. Audiobooks are great for classics because sometimes I feel like the language is a little bit dense, and you're like, I don't even know what this means. And a narrator can almost like their inflection can help you understand what they're getting at. And so I've listened to a bunch of audiobooks. Like I just listened to Tale of Two Cities, and I'd read it like 2 or 3 times before, but it was a really fun audiobook. And they're more digestible that way.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like the actors, so to speak, of the audiobook can kind of like help maybe with me. Sometimes I'm literally like, who's speaking right now? Like, can we declare ourselves? Like, who's talking?
You mentioned the rom-comers, Catherine Senner. It's kind of a coincidence. We have the same agent.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I've never met her before, but she is just killing it right now, and I love to see it. I like her stuff a lot.
I just like it when books have this on it.
Oh, the
where
spray
it's
edges.
Like I was like, oh, it's pink. I love pink. I'll read it.
I love like the fact that like graphic audiobooks are now like becoming a thing where you have like multiple POVs, and like I'm definitely rereading ACOTAR right now to prepare myself for the launch later this year. And they have the graphic audiobooks out now. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm at work and I have like my AirPods in, and I'm like, this is really like intense. Like people are grunting when they're fighting. I'm like, this is how I would love an audiobook when I first read this. But that's also something that I've been really into. It's just the graphic audiobooks where there's like actual actors. It's not just, maybe 2 actors going at it, so you really know who's talking and what's going on. And I've been definitely falling into the ACOTAR Sarah J. Maas reread world right now, which is very chunky, very time consuming. All right, well then I think we can get started. We are super excited for this episode this week. I know many of you are probably like, where's your Barber recap? We're pausing Barber right now because this is more important, okay? We have some incredible guests on our podcast this week. We have MJ and Andrea back from the Laps Down podcast. So welcome back, ladies.
Hello. Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, anytime. Come on down. We love having you both on. But we also are going to be talking about a wonderful novel, and I'll hand it over to Milena to kick off our special guest.
Yes. So we have Kate Shoup, who's the author of Overtaken. Kate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your professional background, your writing style, and how, of course, you came to love IndyCar.
Sure. I've been a writer my whole career and an editor, but I had always done nonfiction. And just at some point, I really wanted to try a novel, partly because my mom is a novelist as well. And it was such a good example for me to see what that really looks like. You know, I had a kind of front row view of what that process is like. It's not glamorous. It's pretty hard work. And I didn't have any sort of false expectations of what it would be like. And I just really knew that I wanted to try. And I chose IndyCar because my husband is an engineer for McLaren on the IndyCar side. And he's been in the series since 2000. Well, he was in Champ Car when it was still split. And he's French, and he came to this country in 2004 and was in Champ Car until they re-merged in 2008. And then he worked for a team called KV Racing. And then he went to Dale Coyne Racing. And then he was at Andretti. And now he's with McLaren. But he was a race engineer. And so he had these very close relationships with these different drivers through the years that really became very like family, you know, really, truly like family. And so I was so pretty enmeshed in that world. And I just felt like that would be the natural topic because I just have had so much experience kind of behind the scenes, just by sheer luck, not through anything I earned or did. Just I've been very lucky. And so I wanted to, I guess the other reason is I love it. I love that world. I love the people in that world. And, you know, I can't set up a car or drive a car or do anything useful in that environment, but I could try to shine a light on it. And so that was part of why I wanted to write on this topic as well.
Awesome. Great.
And we would love if you could take a moment to kind of introduce your novel Overtaken, maybe some bits and pieces that you would want potential readers to know, and then maybe touch on why specifically you chose romance and the Indy 500.
Okay, sure. So Overtaken is a novel. It's a rom-com about a young woman who is a mechanic for an IndyCar team. And it's not really a top-tier team. It's kind of like a second-tier team. And she became a mechanic because she had to give up on her own dreams of being a driver due to some circumstances that were really beyond her control. Basically, what happened was her brother was also a driver, and he did something super dumb on track. And basically, as a result, the family lost all of their sponsors, and she was denied her chance to become a driver too. And the really stupid thing that he did was to a guy named Loic, who went on to become a very successful Formula One driver. And but she knew Loic from when they were kids. He was enough older that, you know, he might have noticed her, might not have noticed her, but she always noticed him because he was talented and everybody knew who he was. So he goes on to F1, great career, and he decides at the end of his career that he wants to try the Indy 500. And that's a pattern you see, you know, like probably the best example I think for current F1 fans would be Alonso, when Fernando Alonso came over with McLaren a few years ago. It was a real one-off thing, and it was very exciting, and it was a big deal. So that was kind of the scenario that I was imagining when I came up with that plot. And basically, not to give too much away, but this kind of secret past that they have together, she doesn't want him to know her relationship to the guy that did this terrible thing to him. And she's very invested in keeping herself like under the radar, doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't want to deal with him, but she's on the team that he's running with. And so they just keep getting thrown together. And eventually it just becomes kind of irresistible. So, and I just have always loved rom-com as a genre for books and for movies. And I feel like, I know that they're not considered very literary, but I feel like those books about human connection are really important, actually. Yeah. And it's funny, I tend to kind of denigrate that genre, even me who writes in it while I'm talking about it. But I'm trying to train myself to stop that, because what is more important than love and people in our lives that we really care about? And especially right now, I feel like life is just really hard for a lot of people. And I feel like this form of escape is actually kind of important right now, just to have a way for 10 minutes, at a time, to not think about terrible things happening all the time. So I guess that's why I really enjoy that genre. And I feel like it's my natural, like I tend to talk that way and think that way. So it's kind of my natural genre, I think.
I feel like it's very relatable. Like you say, like people just get lost in a good rom-com, right? It's like, yeah. I love, yeah. Good. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like your process when you were writing Overtaken. Is there like a specific time and place that you like would write? Do you have like any like music that you listen to, or what kind of inspiration that you draw?
Yeah. So have you guys ever heard of it's called NaNoWriMo. It's in November, and it's like National Novel Writing Month is what it stands for. And basically what people do is you kind of decide you're going to write X number of words a day every day in November. And so in November of 2023, I was like, all right, I've been meaning to do it for a few years just to see what I could generate. And so I did that. And I kind of knew I wanted to write about racing. I wanted to write about the 500. I had the idea of him being from F1, and they had this past. But initially, the past that I had was that accident at the beginning of the book, or that's earlier in the story with her brother that he causes. I had the brother get killed in that accident. And then I was like, oh, this is not funny.
Gotta keep it light.
I cannot be funny with this. So I scratched all that and started over. But anyway, so that's what got me started. And then I kind of put it down for a couple months, and we go to France every Christmas because my husband's family is there, and I didn't really work on it there, but I thought about it a lot. And then that year, I like to go to Colorado for a few weeks every year because I love to ski. It was like my first passion. I used to race when I was younger. And so I go for 3 weeks at a time. And when I went in 2024 for that 3 weeks, I wrote like 50,000 words. Wow. I lost 12 pounds on that trip because I would go skiing and then I would come back and forget to eat until like 11 o'clock at night. And I just couldn't stop. And so really that book came out very easily. It was pretty painless. I finished it maybe like the middle of March, and then I started shopping it around to agents. I got picked up by the middle of May, and then it was, we were off. But it was just a crazy, crazy experience. The second and third novels that I've been working on, which are set around skiing, have been much harder. And you just have to decide to sit down. You're going to just sit down and you're going to suck it up and you're going to work. And there's really no other thing to do. And then you also have to just understand you're going to throw half of it away, and be comfortable with that. It feels really counterproductive and inefficient because it is, but once you accept that that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. And I don't usually write, some people have different processes. They'll have a really tight outline and really stick to it. Other people are very seat of their pants, and I'm kind of in the middle. I have a general idea where it's going, but I don't necessarily know how it's going to get there. And also it's subject to change, and you just have to get comfortable with whatever way is better for you. And, that's how it tends to work for me. But it's really fun. It's very engaging. I really get into it. And when it's hard, it's hard. But when there's always like this tipping point where it just all of a sudden you're not even having to think too hard anymore. It's just starting to write itself. And that's when it gets really fun. I'm not there yet on the third one. It is hard. But yeah, I really feel lucky that I get to do it.
Kind of talking like a little bit more about like the process of writing the book, because you obviously have quite the knowledge about IndyCar. What did the research process kind of look like? Because there are a lot of like blurbs included that are very factual and very digestible for maybe the non-IndyCar fan that's reading. So what was it like choosing those kind of more fact-based components versus like the characters that you're creating yourself?
So originally I had a lot more of that kind of stuff in there because I just know stuff and I wanted to show off how much I know. And I had to really scale that back and decide what serves the story and what doesn't serve the story. So I watched videos on how to build a gear cluster and then described in detail how to build a gear cluster. And then at some point I was like, this does not move the story forward. And there was just all kinds of stuff like that I had to be like, all right, let's not get so deep into it. I mean, I had like a whole bunch of information on like the qualifying format and all like the history of the track and all that stuff is really interesting, but it didn't move the story along. And so I had to be really mercenary at the end and just be like, yes or no. Does this serve or does it not? And so that was how I made the decisions about what kind of information to include and what kind to leave out. But as far as like the technical information, I really used my husband as a resource on that stuff because I was able to ask him very specific questions. And even like, what's the order of operations when you start the car? Like they put the starter in the back. Is there a switch inside? Do they put the starter in first and then flip the switch? Or do they flip the switch? And then, I just had these very specific questions that almost nobody would be able to get answered if they didn't have that kind of access that I have. And even stuff like about winning the 500, where I was like, my husband's very good friends with Tony Kanaan. He was on his car in 2013 when Tony won. And so I was able to ask Tony directly, like, what time did you finally leave the track? Because we saw him later that night, but it wasn't until like 9 o'clock. So I was like, what were all the things that you had to do between winning at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever time, and then when we finally saw you again at like 9 o'clock? And he was able to outline for me, specifically what that was like and all the things he had to do. And then my husband ran Marcus Ericsson for a few years, so I was able to talk to him too. But then the burnt hand on Loic is Grosjean, who my husband ran for 3 years, and he's a close friend. And then the mean dad stories are from Sebastien Bourdais, who is really, of all the drivers he's worked with, I can't say I have a favorite. It's like picking a child, but he's the one that I personally have the closest relationship with. And so I was able to use some of his stories, and I had to ask him, like, is it okay if I make your dad look like a real asshole? but the helmet thing, that was a true story. But then the other true stories that aren't related to that are like the soap thing. That's a true story. The crash, the description of the crash that happens to Loic, that's based on Bourdais' crash in 2017. So, which we were there for and in the hospital with him at, and a lot of those stories are real stories.
Kind of along a similar line of thinking, I found when I was reading a lot of the IndyCar like terminology and those factual blurbs that we were talking about extremely approachable. How important do you think it is to make it realistic, and how do you kind of navigate or balance that without alienating a reader who's maybe more interested in the romantic plot, and how do you balance that?
It's a very hard balance to strike. And that's when I mentioned going back through and pulling so much stuff out, that was in service to those readers, right? Like I didn't want somebody who wasn't necessarily that interested on the IndyCar side to get bogged down. But there's certain stuff you need to know to understand what's happening in the story. And so I just had to make that the decisive factor. Like, does this explain something the person needs to know or not? But at the same time, I wanted people who were interested in IndyCar to be satisfied by the fact that what I'm presenting is real. Like, I've read some F1 romances, and I'm not going to name any names or specify any particular ones, but I get irate when I see a detail that I know is wrong. And I definitely, I think it's okay to take some liberties on specific small details, but there is one where I just was like, no, I just can't stand it. And so the accuracy was actually really, really important to me because I live in that world and I needed to maintain my credibility in that world. If I write something that everybody I know in that world knows is wrong, I have to answer for that, like personally, like in person. And it really mattered to me for it to be accurate.
I can definitely see that, right? When you're having so many eyeballs from the paddock, potentially reading, your novel and then being like, that is exactly not how a pit stop happens in the Indy 500. What are you talking about?
I would have been really horrified, right? And I was at Barber, and because I mostly go to all of the races unless something weird happens. So I was at Barber, and while I was down there, there's a woman named Kara Krstolik, who is the chief of the Firestone program there. She runs Firestone Racing, and she tracked me down and was like, she had read it, and she was like, there were so many things that I could relate to in that book. And she actually posted a review of it on Amazon that really was so generous of her. But that was exactly what I mean. Like, I don't want Kara Krstolik to come up to me and be like, you got a few things wrong. Like, I wanted her to really think that I had nailed it. And I was so grateful that she told me that that was her impression. It was such a relief because I would just be horrified if I had something wrong.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But even when you're thinking about that, as you were writing or even when you were editing the novel, at times, writers tend to kind of weave themselves into the characters within that they're representing. Were there any specific characters within, this group of characters that you saw yourself in, or other folks like your family or friends where you're like, yep, I've taken traits from that person, I've taken traits from myself? Are there anything, any characters or anything that came out after you were writing where you're like, oh, that's surprising. I didn't know that came out. Okay.
What I'm noticing about my writing, I mean, I think at least this is true for me. I guess I can't speak for all writers, but I think most main characters have some facet of the person who's writing them down, and I've noticed that as I've been working on a second and third novel, that I don't know that it's exactly that there are specific characteristics that a person have, but I keep solving the same problems, which I've realized are my problems, kind of feeling invisible, maybe not quite hitting the mark in terms of what you thought you were going to be. Boys did not like me when I was young. I was not noticeable when I was young. I was not a particularly attractive person when I was young. And so I find myself kind of addressing those same. And then I have some family stuff that I find myself coming back to again and again in different ways. Good experiences, bad experiences, difficult relationships, good relationships. I find, so it's not necessarily that I think I am like a character, but I definitely find myself trying to grapple with the same problems that I personally grapple with through those characters. And then in terms of specific inspirations. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's some characters around the paddock that make an appearance in that book. I don't necessarily want to say who they are because some of it's good and some of it's bad, but for sure. Yeah, I mean, for sure. One of the things I do at the track is I take pictures. I felt like I needed some kind of hobby because I go so often and I didn't want Olivier, my husband, to have to be worried about me being bored or, whatever. And so I started taking pictures. And so as a result, I've been in this invisible observational position for a long time where I get to really spy on these people in a socially acceptable way, And so I feel like that's really contributed to my impressions of different drivers and what I think about them. And that has actually informed a lot of that book too, just observations over the years.
I kind of want to talk about, kind of on the same track, I want to talk specifically about Cam and how Cam has like bookworm quirks, I guess. Like always doing the Sunday puzzles. It was mentioned that her favorite book is Pride and Prejudice, which we talked about earlier, and watching like documentaries and stuff. Where did those kind of decisions come from? I didn't know if that might have been like something that you just had an interest in, because I know there were like documentaries cited in that. I didn't know if those were things that you had watched and enjoyed and wanted to include, or if those were specific for Cam herself.
Yeah, the documentary is a good trick because I like facts. I think fun facts are always, you do not want to play trivia with me because I will be like all over it. I'll be super aggressive about it. I'm going to like really go hard. And I like facts. I like weird facts and just weird stuff. And the documentaries, that gave me a way for her to just know weird stuff, like where, and a lot of the weird stuff she knows is weird stuff I know. And I wanted to find ways to plug just weird little details in that make a person seem more real. And I felt like the documentary was a really good cheat for that. I personally actually don't watch that many documentaries. I tend to read more often, but my husband watches documentaries. And so I just thought, well, he knows weird stuff. And it's a good way for a person who wouldn't normally know something to know something. And so that was just kind of a cheat. For me, Pride and Prejudice, I love that book. And one thing I'm kind of enjoying doing in all of my books right now is trying to introduce readers to books they might not have read before. And so I just really, that book in particular for me is a huge, I just love that book. It's really the original rom-com, right? It's like the first one and it still holds up. In my second book, I focus a lot on A Tale of Two Cities because I don't know if you've read that. It's not exactly a love story, but there's a character in it who is very much in love with another character and it's really beautiful. And so that's where that comes from. And but the specific weird little details, I think what makes a character really come alive are those types of details. And I just needed a cheat for how a person could know these weird things.
Well, it did work in convincing somebody to pick up Pride and Prejudice. And I wish
Yay.
I could say I finished it for you, but I haven't finished it yet.
It's a long book. I mean, it's a big book.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm digesting it. I'm really getting in. But did you find that any of the romance parts of the book was inspired by Pride and Prejudice at all? Like you said, being like the original rom-com, did you find that it inspired any of the romance in the book?
I mean, in a weird way, you could make some parallels. I feel like Mr. Darcy is, kind of taciturn, and I think Loic is taciturn, or he appears taciturn. And so I felt like there's a little bit of a similarity there. And then, you've got a character in Cam who, like in Pride and Prejudice, Lizzie is not considered the beauty of the family. Lizzie is not considered the most marriageable member of the family. It's her sister. Is it Jane? And, I think Cam is a little bit like that. She's not really, she's a little bit recessive. She's not really the center of attention. And so I thought, I think you could make some parallels there for sure. And even like the thing about how part of what he's appalled by is her family. Part of what Mr. Darcy is appalled by is Lizzie's family. And so you have a little bit of a comparison there if you want to draw it, because Cam is so ashamed of her family in the same way that Lizzie is ashamed of her mother. And so I did not have any of that in mind at all when I was working on that book. But if, like, in retrospect, I think you can go back and draw some parallels for sure. And also just the class difference. I mean, class difference is a huge, huge part of Pride and Prejudice. And I think that's very obvious in this book. There's a big, big class difference because Loic always had money. Loic was going to be fine no matter what. And I think with Cam, she's a little bit more on the knife's edge of survival than Loic is, the way Lizzie is. So I guess I can see some similarities for sure.
Yeah, and even when you think about, IndyCar and F1 and, this disparity, with budgets and costs and, I saw just recently, Will Buxton was talking about how, IndyCar is like the Coldplay concert you see in an intimate cafe, but then, F1 is the Coldplay concert with like the wristbands and the light up and the kiss cam. And I'm like, when he said that, I was like, that is exactly what it is. And it's very similar when you look at Cam and, Loic's story, right? Like, oh my gosh, like you see that kind of separation, right?
Right.
But when we think about F1 and IndyCar, you mentioned, the crash, around, Sebastian, and then also with Grosjean, why did you decide to use that specific incident within the book? And, why in the Indy 500, right? Like out of the whole story, there were moments where this could have happened, at any time, but why specifically, at the 500?
Are you referring to Loic's crash in qualifying?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the whole book was around the 500, so it made sense for the crash to be part of that timeline. But I think too, you kind of have to have a crash, right? Like, I mean, it's so dangerous, and it's very easy to forget how dangerous it really is. And I really wanted to express that. Unfortunately, I've been at the track when people have died, and I've been at the track when people have been hurt really badly. I was at the track when Dan Weldon died. I was in Las Vegas at the track when that happened, and it was a real reminder because you forget. It's easy to forget. It's so much fun. It's, there's so much going on, and like these people are so interesting, and it's glamorous and exciting and loud and powerful. And it's very easy to forget how dangerous it is. And I really felt like I needed to convey that. And not that it's a contest, but I kind of think it's more dangerous than F1 in a lot of respects, at least at the 500, because of the speeds achieved. And you'll even hear F1 drivers say they will never, ever, never, ever, ever run Indy. And like when Grosjean came over the first year, he did not run Indy. He just wasn't going to do it. And he didn't come for the race because he knew he was going to lose his mind if he was present for the race. But like, once they kind of get a look at it and get a taste of it, it changes. But a lot of those guys, especially the guys that came up the formula ladder instead of coming up in the US, are like not excited about it. And so I kind of wanted to I think there's a misconception among F1 fans that IndyCar is lesser in some way. And I understand that. I mean, from a technological standpoint, absolutely, no question. But it's really not lesser in terms of an entertainment product, in terms of the racing. And I have to say, I pulled back in this book a little bit because I was a lot harder on F1 originally than I allowed it to be in the end. And I don't hate F1 at all, but I'm not nearly as interested in it as I am in IndyCar. And obviously I'm biased, okay? I mean, clearly we exist in this ecosystem, so obviously I'm going to be like, we're better. And so I had to really scale back on my kind of anti-F1 bias and acknowledge that, yes, technologically, yes, these cars are better. There's no question. But I still contend that the racing in IndyCar is so much more fun to watch. I don't know how I got onto that from what you asked me, but then I guess just the 500 being the most IndyCar of all the IndyCar. I think it's the most amplified version of IndyCar. And I don't know if you've ever been to the race, but it's bananas. And I mean, like absolutely bananas. So I hope you'll go if you haven't been.
Yeah, Monica and I, we actually went last year, and it was actually like,
it's bananas.
Absolutely bananas. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I've never seen that many people in a place before in my life. Like, and when you look, and even my dad is like not a crowds person, and he was like watching on TV, and he's like, how did you navigate? And I'm like, when you're in it, it's different.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you have no idea. Yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Even the detail in the book about, where she's driving into the speedway and she's like, it's bigger than Monaco. And she's like, I don't mean the Monaco street circuit. I mean the principality of Monaco. Like there is more square acreage in the speedway complex than in all of Monaco. I mean, you just cannot even conceive of it until you go. So, and I love the whole IndyCar series. Like I like every race has its special aspects. I mean, some more than others, like Long Beach is coming up. It's a good one. It's one of the older races. It's got a lot of traditions, but man, Indy is Indy. It's its own special, unique place and time and experience. And there is nothing like it.
If you're ever distributing like an author's cut, that, you know, has all those tough on F. We have an audience that would love to read it.
Yeah, give us the B-roll, give us all the notes.
I know,
we want to see it.
I kind of hated to take it out, right? But at the same time, I don't really want to like yuck on someone's yum, right? Like I feel like we're all interested in the same thing, and these are just pretty fine sliced categories if you really think about it. And so I don't want to be like, what I want to do is persuade that person that they should give us a try too, you know. And I do really believe that if a person is a big F1 fan, they're going to be just as excited about IndyCar if they give it a chance. And I will also say, like, not to put too fine a point on it, but our guys are super hot too. Like there are some super hot dudes in IndyCar. And I don't mean to stereotype female fans of racing or of F1, but it is part of the appeal, I think, for a lot of women is it's sexy. I mean, and I'm sorry, like these dudes are hot, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not embarrassed to say it. They just are. And I just hope that what I kind of hope with the book was that, and why I decided to scale that back was I didn't want to alienate those women who are into F1 and have them be like, bitch, like, come on. I wanted them to give me a chance. And so even though I still hold certain negative beliefs about F1, and I do think my depiction of the difference in the culture is accurate, like that stuff came from Grosjean. Romain was the one that was describing the difference in the culture. And then I was watching that the new IndyCar series that's on YouTube, and the episode about Mick Schumacher really kind of confirmed a lot of what I felt was expressed in the book. So I was like, I got it right. But yeah, I remember with Romain when he was a rookie, it was in 2021. It was a super fun year. And his teammate was a guy named Ed Jones at Coyne. And we went out to dinner, all of us, my husband and I, and Romain and Ed. And we sat down, and Romain said it was the first time he had ever in his career, ever had dinner with a teammate. And I just thought that was the craziest thing, right? Like that is the craziest thing. But it's super normal for these guys to be friends in IndyCar. And I'm sure that in F1, those guys build relationships too, but it's so cutthroat. They're so hard, and it's so hard to hold on to your seat that I bet it's hard, you know, to connect on a human level.
That, and I feel like they're so PR trained in F1 that they really are not allowed to show much of themselves. Right. Versus IndyCar, you see, I mean, these guys are not PR trained at all, and I love it. Yeah. And it's just so much more like you can connect to the drivers more. I think
so too. Like I was noticing they were giving the preview for the next IndyCar All In. And it was like someone was asking Scott McLaughlin to, you know, describe the previous season. And he just said dog shit. You know, the previous season was dog shit. And I was like, it's true. He did have a dog shit season. But it's the best word for it. And I love that he felt like he could say that, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I just feel like I wanted to make sure I didn't alienate people and make it like work against what I was trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I do think that, you know, whenever you talk to people who love IndyCar, they're like, it's like a family, not only for the teams and the drivers, but also for the fans, right? Like it's this family environment. And like, I do think that the All In series, like showing all of them just like barbecuing with their kids in the infield, right? And like mixed there. And then you have like, oh yeah, Alex Palou brings, you know, his daughter in too. And you would never see that type of commingling happening during an F1 race weekend. You wouldn't. And the fans have similar experiences, right? Like we've gone to plenty of races, like Milena and I, we also love going to Road America. The amount of times we're just chilling in our golf cart, just driving around, people are having a, you know, great time hooting and hollering and helping each other out, you know, when their tent flies off because it's windy. Like that's what we love about IndyCar, and it's great to be able to see that also, like those traditions and that community within the book as well, right?
Yeah, I really wanted to convey that because, I mean, I have friends who are not in racing, obviously. I mean, you know, like that I from people that I knew from before I met Olivier and in other parts of my life, but it's a really nice community. I mean, there's some jerks, of course. I don't really square with a lot of the politics sometimes. I have a hard time with that. I have a very hard time with that. But there are some very wonderful people, and there's a lot of people from a lot of interesting places. You know, it's very international. And it's a lot, it's fun. You know, it's really fun. And I feel so lucky. Like, I mean, again, this is just sheer luck on my part to have, I mean, Olivier was my next door neighbor. That's how we met. I got divorced. I was like, I need a house. Any house will do. I don't care. It just has to be in my daughter's school district. And it was next door to Olivier's house. And now we live in Olivier's house. I mean, like, how much luckier could a person possibly get than that? And, but what I did try to do once I realized that like this was permanent, was I decided to make the most of it. Like I decided to try to find my own place in that world. And initially I did that by taking pictures and posting them. And I mean, there are people at the racetrack that don't even know that I'm married to Olivier. They think I'm just there on my own merits, which I am not. But I definitely wanted to make the most of it. And I've been super lucky to build my own relationships with people, drivers, not drivers, mechanics, PR people in the series. I mean, it is a really nice community, and people are fun and smart and funny. And, but I love that fans have that sense of it too, because they obviously are very welcome. I think that's where IndyCar differs in a big way from F1 is it still feels sexy and outside of a normal person's experience, but it's not so unrelatable, right? Like, I can't relate to like a Max Verstappen. Like I can't even begin to relate to Max Verstappen. I don't have a problem with Max Verstappen, but I can't relate to him. But there's a lot of guys in IndyCar. Like right now, I'm just super high on Kyle Kirkwood. I just adore Kyle Kirkwood, and we've worked with him in the past. We've loaned him our motorhome in the past for the 500. Right now, Olivier is not on a specific car, so it's weird for me because usually I would just be like ride or die with whatever driver that was. And since that's not the case anymore, he's mostly on Pato's stand, but I haven't really gotten to know Pato yet. So I'm like, I want him to do well. That's great. But like, it's weird for me, but like, I have just laser focused on Kyle Kirkwood right now as my guy. He's a great guy. And so he's a very sweet guy. He's a really nice guy. So it's just kind of funny for me to be in that position of like picking just a random driver and being like, that's my guy. So I'm sure he'll be like, what are you talking about when I see him? But he's very sweet. But like, even like, we went to Marcus Ericsson's wedding in Italy, and we were by far the ugliest people there. Like, I mean, there was like no comparison. It's like us and 120 Scandinavians. Like, I mean, there just was like, but it was just fun to get to go and be part of it. And like Kyle was there and Colton was there and like all these guys were there and Callum Eilert was there and, James Hinchcliffe was there. And it's just every so often I'm like, this is so crazy, like it just feels so crazy that this is our life right now. And, but I feel super lucky, and it's just really fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's amazing.
I mean, the wedding, oh my God. Like
I can't even imagine. Like I saw pictures from that wedding and I'm like, oh my God.
It was in Scandinavian Vogue. I mean, like it was like, so just as an example, like we were so it was at Lake Como, and we were like, we should watch some movies. I've never been to Lake Como. Let's watch a movie to see what Lake Como looks like. So we were like, Ocean's 12 has Lake Como. And we realized that the part at Lake Como was the wedding venue. It was where they got married. And we were like,
that's so cool.
God, it was just insane. It was crazy. But what was really funny was with Kyle and Colton, because they were there with their girlfriends, and they were like, oh my God. Because basically those girlfriends were like, this is nice, like, maybe we should do this. And you could just tell both of them were like, oh God, oh my God. So it was really cute. They were super cute.
Amazing.
But it's fun.
Okay,
so go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, pardon my segue. It's going to be kind of a hard transition.
Okay.
after the fun stuff, but a big plot point in your book is Cam's struggle with being a woman in motorsport and the kind of like sexism, just the casual sexism and discrimination. I'm curious as to why you chose the different struggles that she had to go through, like specifically with the soap and the nickname that she's given. Where did that kind of come from? And then how do you think that really helped Cam through like her romance story as well?
So the nickname, I just needed a nickname because I needed him to not know what her real last name was. was. And I chose that nickname because a good friend of mine is Lindy Thaxton, who was a pit reporter a long time ago. And we used to joke about Veronica Corningstone. Like we were always making the Veronica Corningstone reference with her and now she's like a news anchor and whatever. But I needed a nickname and I wanted it to be funny. And so that's why I chose that nickname. And I felt like that would kind of help express the level of sexism that does exist in that world. Like just as an example, there's a very smart woman that everyone used to call blogger tits because she had a blog and she had big tits. And so like, it's just like that kind of casual sexism is very present and it sucks, right? Like that sucks. And I chose that nickname as a way to help convey that. The soap is a true story. That actually did happen. It was years and years and years before they figured out that they needed to have that soap in the women's room in the same way as they did the men's room. But I just needed, I think for Cam in particular, she tries to deal with it one way, right? She's just trying to like lay low, not make a lot of waves. She just wants to do her job and not be bothered. But that character, the fact that she's a gearbox girl, is kind of based on a friend of mine whose name is Anna Chatton. And she was sort of like the OG GBG. Like she was one of the very first female mechanics, one of the first to go over the wall. Not the first, but very early. And Anna was not really like Cam. She's a lot sassier and a lot brassier. And that was how she dealt with it. She just would give whatever you gave her and she'd give it back. And so I just wanted to kind of like think about the different ways that different women might navigate that minefield and how frustrating it is and how alienating it is. It is getting better. I do want to just say, like, there are I see a lot more women on pit lane than I used to, not just as engineers, which I was starting to see that already, but I'm seeing a lot of women who are over the wall, and it's very exciting for me to see it. There's a young woman on Joseph Newgarden's car who was over the wall. She's inside front tire, and she's just a beast. Like she's super fit and she's on it. And there's a woman at McLaren whose name is Grace. She's over the wall. I think she's on airjack the way Cam is. But there's more and more of it, and I'm thrilled to see it. But they all have to navigate it in their own way. Like this woman, my husband works directly with the woman I just mentioned named Grace, and she's very sassy. She'll just come out swinging, and she's going to outdo whatever you think you're going to do to her. And that's how she copes with it. But different people cope with it differently. And I do have friends who have really struggled with that. I have a friend who was a PR person for a long time who's just absolutely had to deal with every horrible thing that you can imagine in terms of sexism, sexual harassment, just everything you can imagine. But I do think it's getting better. It still has a long way to go, but I do see more and more women, and I see the younger men seem totally cool with it. Like, I think that's a big difference too. I think some of the old school guys are still not quite on board, or it's not even that they're not on board, but they just don't know how to handle it. Like they just don't know what's okay and what's not okay. I don't think they mean to be jerks. I just think they're just, that's the water they swim in, and they haven't figured out that it's not okay yet. But most of the younger guys are pretty cool with it, as they should be. Not like you should get extra special props for it, but it is getting better.
Cool. So earlier you mentioned that, as you're writing, that you have to be okay with like cutting some of the story and cutting some things out, right? So is there anything in Overtaken that you had to cut that you really wish that you kept in?
No, there's nothing I wish I had kept in. You really have to, I keep using the word mercenary, but you really have to be clear on what the story is about. And you really have to be clear on what scenes work and don't work, and what scenes you need and don't need. I mean, I'll kill off whole characters if I have to, and it's okay. Like, I'm not upset about it when it happens. It's like I have files that I could go back to and revive somebody for another book somewhere if I feel like that's what's needed. So I don't get too caught up in what I have to let go. It doesn't really bother me too much. And I can't, even right now, I can't even think of a specific scene. I can't even really think of a specific scene that I cut that I cut at all. I mean, sure I did. I know I did, but that's how much I let go of it, is I can't even think of what that would be now. But yeah, just like, it's just all about keeping it tight and keeping it focused, because you just don't want a person to be bored. You have to make sure that the reader like wants to keep reading. And anytime someone is setting it down, unless it's like 3 a.m, like that's a failure, right? Like I feel like I want a person to be so invested in what's happening that they can't put it down.
Perfect.
I have a quick follow-up question. Okay, so when you're creating some of these like characters and things like that, do you, like, in my mind, and like, if I was an author, I feel like this is what I would do, that I would like create a person's like complete persona and like have like pages about this is this person's persona and how they fit in the story. Is that how you kind of develop some of these characters?
I think a lot of people do it exactly the way that you're describing. I find that they evolve as the story evolves in my mind. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll endow a person with a quality or characteristic that I need them to have for whatever idea I've decided to try to execute. And like Kimmy, for example, did not exist. There was no Kimmy. I had no concept of a Kimmy, no plans for a Kimmy, but I needed a person to play against Loic, to reveal certain things about him, and a person for Cam to feel a little bit of a jealousy about, and to create some confusion for her. And so sometimes you have an idea for a character and you want to build that character, but other times you just need a vehicle, and a character serves as a vehicle to reveal things about other characters, either as a foil or as a mirror. And so it just depends on the character. And I think for the main characters, I always would have a much stronger sense of who they were from the outset and what problems they were going to face and what general qualities they were going to have and what problems they were going to have. And a lot of times that's where it comes from, is your set of problems and their set of problems. Like, let's say you have a romantic hero and a romantic heroine, and their sets of problems have to be complementary in some way, because they kind of have to solve their own problems through what they learned from the other one. And so a lot of my thinking is not so much in terms of a person or a brain or a personality or a quality. It's more about like, what are the circumstances that these people are in, and what personal qualities might they need to have to navigate these circumstances? And then it's almost like you reverse engineer from there. But that's just me, and everybody's different. Like, everybody does things differently. I think I mentioned my mom is a novelist. Like I said, that I like to have a little bit of an outline. She doesn't really have any outline at all. She goes like, she just like, they call it seat of your pants. Like, she just does that. And I can't even imagine doing that. I have like a mix of that. And so the same thing happens with building a character. Is it's like, I have maybe a general framework of what I think they're about, but it's going to change, and it's going to depend on what I need them to be like to make the story work, especially for more ancillary characters.
No, that's really interesting to think about, because, so many of our most beloved characters, sometimes they just came halfway through the book because it just came to the writer, right? And you fall in love with that character, but they weren't even originally planned, and it just kind of happened.
I mean, I've had more people be like, we want more Kimmy. Like, everybody loved Kimmy. And I love Kimmy too. But if someone was like, you should do one with Kimmy as the character. And I was like, no, because she's too weird. Like, Kimmy has to exist to reveal everybody else is normal. Like, like Kimmy's like a way of showing other people's qualities. I don't think I could ever write a whole book about Kimmy, because she's just too weird. It would be such a challenge to even envision. Like, I don't know. Is Kimmy gay? Is Kimmy not gay? Is Kimmy into, I don't know what Kimmy, she has like, there's like the little hint of a threesome joke that she makes. Like, that seems plausible. And I just don't even know where to start with a character like that. I have to have a person who's a little bit more grounded, and then all these weird, crazy, like, and then the next book I write, the best friend is named Audrey, and she's bananas. She's so fun to write, but I could never write a book that was about Audrey because she's too crazy. You have to have that craziness to serve as a foil for the character that most of your readers are going to relate to.
Yeah.
There's like a mechanical aspect of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I think that's really interesting, kind of get that insight, right? Because as a reader myself, like, you always fall in love with like one niche character, and you're like, I would love a series for that one character. But it's better to understand like the writing process and how we get to that point, because every reader is going to love or hate a character differently, right? My best friend and I always argue about who our favorite character is, and she is a Mr. Darcy stan. Like she will fight to the death for him, and we have these like great intellectual conversations about it. But the reader subjective, right? Everyone's going to fall in love with a character differently. All right, so we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the 2026 IndyCar season and the Indy 500.
Let's go.
So, we've read that, you've been going to a lot of Indy 500s, and a lot of the times, you're kind of rocking solo, right? There's an opportunity for you to go and do your own thing. You're either taking photos or doing things around the speedway. With folks that are really interested in IndyCar, let's say they're, they want to go, but it's just them. They're like, oh my gosh, like I really want to go, but I don't have, friends or a community that I can go to. What is some advice for folks that, want to go to the Indy 500, but they want to attend solo?
I went by myself before I knew Olivier one time. So I'm from Indy. And I grew up here, and my parents used to go, and I can remember just always being interested in it, but like I was too little. And then the first time I went was with my dad. I was maybe like 13 or 14, and we rode in on his motorcycle, so I felt all cool. And then my first husband was from California, and we moved back here. And I wanted to take him because it was like I liked it. I thought it was cool, and he brought sushi and alienated everyone in our row. And it was like, it just was a disaster. And that really should have been like a pretty big red flag, right? Like, this is not I'm with the wrong person. But we got divorced. But before we got divorced, I think it must have been like the next year after the sushi incident, or maybe the year after. But like I woke up the morning of the race, it was like a beautiful day, and we had no plans to go. But I was like, let's go. We should just go. And he's like, ugh, I don't want to go. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go. So I went. I drove in and I parked at like 38th and Georgetown, and I walked to 30th Street, and I bought a ticket way high up in turn 4, just one by myself. And I sat up there and I watched it, and it was great. I had a great day. So if a person wants to go by themselves, I guess I'm very comfortable doing things by myself. So that's part of it. Like I'll go to dinner by myself. I go to movies by myself. I have no issue doing anything by myself ever. But it's very fun, and people were nice. I'm sure they were like, it was a little bit weird that there's this like lady up here on her own. But I didn't care. It was fun. So, but there's like little pieces of advice that, it's like, I have a secret little back way in that I use every year that works. And I get a ride in on a motorcycle. So it's like, it's easier to get around anyway. But like, just stuff like there's going to be a ton of traffic. Be ready for that. Like, if you can sit high in turn 1, try to sit high in turn 1. That's the best spot. Like, there's no place at the track where you can see everything. But if you're high in turn 1, like at the beginning of the race, it's just the most exciting place to be. And then it's just like, it's kind of pick a driver that you want to follow. I think it's more fun when you're trying to follow a specific driver. And the other thing this is a weird piece of advice, but I wish the broadcast focused more on this, but pay attention to lap since last pit, because that's how you're going to figure out where they are on their fuel strategy. And I think a lot of people don't really understand. They'll be like, oh my God, how is this person leading right now? And they don't understand about pit cycles and pit windows. And so I'm really trying to I would encourage the broadcast to try to focus more on pit windows, pit cycles, lap since last pit. Where are we on tires? Not at the 500, it's the same tires, but if you're at Barber, where are we on tires? Who's on what? And the IndyCar app is actually really great for all that kind of stuff. And even if you're at the track, if you can get a signal and you can pull that up, it actually really helps to keep track of what's going on, like what's really going on. But yeah, and I love the strategy piece. I get super duper into it. Like I drive my husband crazy with it because when he was a race engineer, I would text him and tell him during you guys need to pit. And I'm sure he was like, this bitch, what is she doing? But I would tell him, I would be like, push the patch. You're like, it's just, he's like, I know. Okay, I know. But one time it was the last year. after Long Beach, because I just felt like they really blew their strategy at Long Beach last year. And so we came home and we went to Five Guys and we like hashed out all these like philosophy, like strategy philosophy. We came home and I had index cards and we built like a whole decision tree out of these index cards on our dining room table. And I'm like, no, wait, you don't know. You got to think about it this way. And he'd be like, yeah, no, okay, yeah, you're right. And we'd write that down and move them all around. I mean, like I took a picture of it. He made a thing about it and like presented it at work. And I was like, did you tell him that I was also there? And he's like, I did. So I just get into it, so the strategy piece, the more you can learn about how all that works, the more interesting it's going to be every time. But it's fun to have a person. It's fun to root for a certain person, a certain car, a certain team, to get behind a certain anything, engineer, I don't know, like just it helps to have a specific person or team that you want to win.
I'm obsessed with the advice of pick a driver. I always tell people to do the same thing. And you don't have to like pick it off of anything logical to me. You could look at me straight in the eye and say, I like the color. And I would go, period. Let's cheer for them.
Totally
but
fine.
I also think it's also fun to look back at who the first driver you picked was once you learn more about the drivers. Because in almost every racing series I watch, the first person that I pick as my favorite driver a year later, honestly, probably have a completely different opinion, and it might be the but I think it's fun.
It is fun. I'll take against people just totally randomly, like, I hate that guy, and then realize like 4 years later, like, oh, he's super sweet. In fact, like I took against Sebastian Bourdais so hard before I knew it, because he was just such a butt on TV. He just came across so like, I don't know. He might predate when you guys got interested in it. I don't know, but he won Champ Car 4 times, and he went to F1 and was on Red Bull at the same time as Vettel. And then that sucked and it was a complete disaster. And then he came back to IndyCar, and that was when we met him. But he just always came across as like womp womp about everything, he did not say a word that was not a complaint on TV. And I just was like, this fucking guy, And then when he came over to Olivier's team and Olivier got assigned to him, I was like, great, this is going to suck. And that guy's like, seriously, like one of my best friends now. And so I've had to really learn to shut up when I think I don't like somebody, because I definitely still have drivers that I feel that way about. And I feel like it's accurate. But I have got to learn how to be like, just give them a chance. Like, unless you've had a personal interaction with them that has sucked, you really don't know if that person's a nice person or not. And so I have been proven wrong many times on who's a jerk and who's not a jerk. It's embarrassing.
You can ask MJ, and I'm sure I've told you other two this before. I did not like Will Power when I first started watching IndyCar.
A lot of people feel that way.
He yelled at David Malukas the first race I watched, and I was just so bummed about it. And I was like, so why would he yell at that sweet boy? Like, that's a child. You can't yell at children. And then I learned that Will Power is he's honestly a treasure and a charm.
He is a treasure.
And I love him really dearly.
Is. And he's super intense. And one time, so that's the other thing is like, you don't realize that they're just people. Like you sort of feel like there's this distance, and there's not. They're just people. And one time, because photographing him is fun because he just looks insane all the time. Like his expression is insane all the time. And I remember posting something where I was like, look how insane he looks. And then he got on and was like, that's not very nice. And I was like, oh my God, that's not very nice. Why did I do that? That's terrible. But Olivier worked with Will very early in Will's career. And so I've always liked him. I've always thought he was a nice guy, but that people really don't like him, but they don't understand that that intensity is about passion, right? And how can you not like a guy that's so passionate? He's actually a very nice person, and his wife is a very nice person, and they've had a lot of hardships in the last several years. And so I have a real tender spot for Will. He's a very good guy.
Well, I'm certified card carrying Will Power fan. Don't worry.
Girl.
Opinion
yes.
changed.
Yeah.
But you are talking to a lot of Midwesterners who do not have the joy of living in Indianapolis during the month of May. So we were hoping you could impart some of that charm onto us and tell us a little bit about what the community is like and how they kind of embrace the 500.
Yeah. One thing that really bums me out is how, I don't know if you're aware, but they black out the race here. You can't watch it on TV. It drives me crazy because I think as a community, we really do a lot to try to keep it going. And, people identify very strongly with it. I mean, I went to college in Boston in Colorado, and I always would be like very proud to be from Indianapolis because of the 500. It's something everybody's heard of no matter where you go. So I think most people who live here are very proud of it and know at least a little something about it usually. But it does put people out, especially people who live in Speedway. It's a huge pain in the ass for people who live in Speedway because there's so much traffic. If you are trying to go somewhere on race day in Speedway, forget it. Like you're not going anywhere. And so I do get bummed out that it gets blacked out for people and I think it's unfortunate too, because I think it would pull more people than like their argument is always, well, it didn't sell out, so we should black it out. And I think just because you aren't going to go doesn't mean you wouldn't watch it on TV. You know what I mean? Like you might pull fans who might not have the opportunity to go. It's expensive to go. It's hard to go. It's a big, long day. And so I don't know. That drives me nuts. But as a city, it's a pretty central part of our identity as a city and as a state. I mean, it's like on our driver's licenses. There's like a little holographic race car on our Indiana driver's licenses. So it's a big deal here. And it's a huge industry here. Almost all of the teams are here. Not all of them. Coyne is in Chicago. Penske's in Charlotte. But everybody else is pretty, Foyt used to have one in Texas, but they're all the way here now. So, it's a big industry here. It's a big part of our identity.
Do you have any recommendations for I'm going to be in Indy in the month of May for the first time ever. Yay. We're just going to qualifying, but I'm still going to be there. I get to see the magic and I'm like stoked about it. Do you have any recommendations outside of like actually like going to the race of like things a first timer needs to do in Indy during the month of May?
Yeah. Well, first of all, qualifying is really interesting. Are you going for both days? Day one is cool. I would try to like sit there's like seating toward basically they all line up on pit lane facing toward turn one, and you can sit in those seats that are right along where they're lining up. And it's a really fun place to sit because there's just so much going on. Like qualifying is a really fun day for me because like everybody's milling around and drivers are like talking and hanging out and shooting the shit and mechanics are all in, like everybody's mingling, and it's just a fun day to like take pictures and watch just what's going on. So that, first of all, just while you're there for qualifying, that would be my suggestion, is to try to sit like on the inside of turn one, like along the pit lane part. And usually I'm pretty sure there's some screens opposite you so you can see what's going on, but there's just a lot of activity on pit lane that day. And it's just fun. Everybody always says to go to Mug and Bun, which is like a weird little restaurant that's in Speedway. I've never been there. But I know that's what you're supposed to tell people to do. They have breaded tenderloins. I don't know. Speedway proper is a really cute little town now. It used to be kind of a dump, but they've really done a lot to make it cute. And there's some nice little restaurants in Speedway, like on Main Street, and some cute little shops that you can check out. Are you staying in Speedway, or where are you going to be?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
The world is our oyster.
But we'll be there.
Okay, so like, do you want to know like where are cool places to stay, like areas to stay?
Yeah.
Like, like Fountain Square is a cool area. Are you gonna have a car? Yeah, you'll have a car, right? Yeah. Okay. So Fountain Square is a cool area. A lot of restaurants and stuff. Mass Ave is a cool area. Broad Ripple it's kind of more like bro-y bars, but that's fun. It's kind of close to where I live. But there's a lot of little pockets around Indianapolis that are really cute and fun to check out. But I would say Fountain Square or Mass Ave or anything kind of in those areas is good. But that's kind of on the, nothing's very far away. On the west side, unless you're in like Speedway proper, there's not a whole lot that I would recommend like hanging out on the west side where the Speedway is. But Speedway proper is pretty cute. They've done a good job there. And then, like we have great, I don't know if you're foodies, we have really good restaurants in Indianapolis now. We used to not have anything ever anywhere. And now there's actually good stuff. And there's usually like, I guess, you're not going to be there for like, are you going to get there in time for Friday, like Fast Friday? That's always kind of a big day at the track, is Fast Friday, the day before qualifying. So it's like you'll see a lot of people kind of taking that day off. Not as many as Carb Day, but Fast Friday is a pretty good day. I'm just trying to think of what else you might want to. I'm just literally at the track all day, every day, all month. So I'm not even that great at being able to recommend what else to do because I'm at the track. So, but the museum is nice.
I have a suggestion for you guys that Monica and I did. If you guys have a chance to go to the Delara factory,
oh yeah,
do it.
It's right in Speedway.
Yeah, so because I think they only do tours in the month of May, from what I understand. So they have it's like what, $20 to go or something like that. It's like
I've actually never done it.
So we went because my dad was like, you should try it, because my dad's from Italy and was like, you have to go to Delara if you're there. So I'm like, okay, sure. And it was amazing. So like, and like I said, they kind of like scrap, like it's very clean in there. During the month of May when they do like the tours and stuff like that, but like they show you like the simulator, they show you like all like the cool parts of the factory. Highly recommend you guys do that. And I think you just go on their website and just buy tickets from there.
That's a great recommendation. And it's right
I'll
in
send you
Speedway.
guys the link.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the museum is actually really nice, and they just redid it. And so I would definitely go to the museum. It's funny. So the museum used to be, it was like the basement. It was like this magical secret part of the museum that not everybody got to go see. And I was always like, is that real? Like, is there really a basement? Have you guys ever seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure with Pee-wee Herman? There's like the whole thing where he's trying to go to the Alamo because someone told him that his bike is in the basement, and that there's no basement in the Alamo. And so it's like, it just always made me think of that. And there was a basement, and I did get to go. Like I went with Grosjean one day, and what's nice about like having a buddy who's a driver is you get to go anywhere. like anywhere on the track, you're going to get to go. And so he went to the museum with me one day, and they let us into the basement, and we got to see all these cars that nobody else gets to see. And now those cars are actually on display, so people get to see them. And I'm like, dang it. Like, it used to be like special, but it actually is super, super cool. The new museum is really nice.
One tradition that me and MJ do want to try to make it to this year that I would love your take on, because we're so interested in the like human dynamic of it, is pulling the order for qualifying and how they often
Friday.
involve their partners, and it's like this crazy high pressure situation, and everybody you see some like 8-year-old being like, I picked the wrong number.
Yeah. It's actually really cool. That is worth going to. They usually do it right on the pagoda, like the plaza that's behind the pagoda. And they'll have the stage set up, and they send everybody up to draw the numbers. And it is cool that it's random. Like I like that. I think it's nice because it makes a big difference when you qualify. If you are late in the day, late in the draw, it sucks because, it usually does, because it gets hot, the track gets greasy. The hotter the track is, the harder the engine has to work. There's just a lot of things that can affect your qualifying run. And so you kind of want to draw between like 8 and 12 generally, usually. Like you don't want to be first because that's just stressful to be first. But the draw is fun. It's cool. And you'll see everybody out kind of milling around, and it's like everybody's excited about it. And you'll get to see their families or their kids or their partners, or sometimes their parents will pull it. And it's a good time. You should definitely do that.
Well, shoot, I'm going to qualies as well. I guess I got to take Friday off, and I'm coming. I guess I got to drive down on Friday now.
So where are you guys? So where do you guys all live?
Milan and I are in the Chicagoland area.
Okay.
I live in Detroit.
Okay.
I live in Iowa.
Oh, okay. So, are you near Newton, or are you near Des Moines?
More near Des Moines, but not too
I like
far
Des
away
Moines.
from Newton.
I think Des Moines is really cute. I really had a good time I guess we're not going back to Newton this year.
I was just about to say, do you think it's unfair they took the Iowa Speedway from us?
Yeah,
I miss it.
I always enjoyed that race. Those short track ovals are a lot of mayhem, and they're fun to watch because they're just, again, like bananas. And so I think it's a bummer. But I will say too, like, that people didn't come. We need ovals, but if people don't come, we can't make it work. I find that street courses do the best because you can just draw from a more diverse population, and people might just show up to check it out in a way that they're not going to make a big drive to an oval that's in the middle of nowhere to go. So I get it, but we had Phoenix this year, got put back on, which was great. And I like Phoenix. I thought it was a great race and it was fun. And I thought Arlington was a great race, but anyway, Friday's fun. You should come, but I'll be there. I'm like, anytime they're running, I'll be there. So we can try to meet up if you'd like to.
Love that.
All right. So do you have any predictions for the 2026 season? Like, and it can be really weird. Like Monica and I are like, it's going to rain at least like one day during qualifying or something like that. Is there any like random things that you have?
That I'll lay down? I mean,
yeah.
God, I hope it doesn't rain during qualifying because it does really suck. I don't mind a rain day on a practice. Like, that's fine. But it just sucks if it's qualifying or race day. It's such a hassle when they have to like delay it. It's such a bummer. I've been through that and it sucks. I think as far as the racing goes, boy, Paolo looks really good. And he's just a doll baby too. It's very hard to root against him because he's a darling. And he's really smart. He's really calm. He's having a good time. I don't know how you dismantle what they have going on over there. I think it's going to be very hard to beat him. If someone does beat him, I think it's going to be my boy Kyle Kirkwood, because he is also very smart and he's just really starting to hit his stride. I feel like I'm a little worried about Dixon. I don't know what's going on with Dixon. I don't know if I think his heart's not in it or if I think they've shifted and they've started to focus more on what Paolo wants in a car and less on what Dixon wants in a car. And I don't know what's going on with Dixon. So I'm not sure how to feel about that. Other drivers, I mean, I love Ericsson. I think he's a sweet guy. I hope he does great. I'm curious how Will's going to do at Andretti for the rest of the year. I'm not sure because I think there's, like, for example, when Olivier moved to Andretti from Coyne with Grosjean, it's not like your car just translates. For some reason, you could have all the paperwork with all your settings that you did the year before, and for some reason, sometimes it just does not translate. And so what I don't know for Will is how much the Penske car is going to translate into the Andretti car for the year. So I'm just not sure. Joseph seems weird right now. Like, I don't see him, like, I don't know. I know he won Phoenix, or where it was Phoenix, right? But like, I don't know. Like, he had such a rough year last year. I'm not sure. I think McLaughlin's going to do well. Who else do I think? And I know, I don't know what your views are on Santino. I think people mostly hate Santino. But I'm actually kind of fond of Santino. And I think Santino could do really well at the 500. I think he's very talented there, like extremely talented there. And the other person I think could be a dark horse is Rasmussen. He is very good on it. He just has a very natural gift on an oval. I don't necessarily think that he is as gifted on other forms, but boy, he is fearless on the oval and he will drive the wheels off of whatever you give him. So I would watch for Santino at the 500. I think he's hungry for it. I think he could do it. I know people don't like him. I understand why people don't like him, but he's always been very sweet to us. Like, he's always been really, my husband ran him in I think 2019. I can't remember what year, maybe 20. I can't remember, but he's always been very nice to us. And so I even though I get it, I have kind of a soft spot.
That's what everybody says. Like, and I think with me and Monica always have this conversation about Santino, and we're not his biggest fans, that we'll say, but we always hear great things about him off the track and like his personality and like that he is a good person. But I don't know. I feel
it's interesting. Last year last year or the year before, he said something shitty about Kyle and Colton that was pretty homophobic on TV. And I was like, dude, come on. And he knew it. He knew he shouldn't have done it. Like, he knew that. He knew it right away. And it was funny because our politics are very different. We both know it. And the next day, a lot of times he'll come out of his timing stand to talk to me regularly. Like, I mean, just to say hi, to catch up. If it's the first time I'm seeing him for the weekend, we'll chit chat. His wife is really lovely. And he came out, he saw me coming on pit lane. It was in Detroit. And he came out and he was like, I should not have said that. And I was like, no, bud, you really shouldn't have. But I really appreciated that he did that. Like, he knew that I knew what he said and he knew that I wasn't going to like it. And so that matters to me, that he took responsibility for it personally, like in his personal, with people that I guess he cares I don't know if he cares what my opinion is or not, but it seemed like it. And I really appreciated that he did that. Did it make it okay? No, it did not. I hope he never does anything like that again. But he has always been very nice to us. And so it's hard for me. I understand. I get it. I do. I understand why people feel the way they do. But he actually can be a very kind-hearted person.
He scored a little bit more points than in my book from that interaction.
So. I was so mad at him, when he said that. I was like, "What? Come on, like better. Come on." But he did know better. So he did know better, and I guess that's the upshot. He knew better, and I hope he'll do better. So, but he's cute. He always like, because I'm taking pictures and I'm always kind of hiding, and he always catches me. Every time he catches me, and he'll stick his tongue out or make a face or whatever, which I just think is cute. So he's sweet.
I will say I liked what I heard. You thought maybe Christian Rasmussen could do good at the 500.
I think he could. He's nuts. Oh my God.
I like him a little crazy. What can I say?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So there is a lot of booming fandom around motorsports in general. We see obviously the growth of F1. NASCAR is kind of having a comeback. It feels like, a lot of people are experimenting more with like watching IMSA. What would you tell listeners who are thinking about getting into IndyCar, or why do you think people should be choosing IndyCar as the motorsport to get into?
I just think, for me, in my opinion, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying I am biased, but I still think this is a fact that the racing is fantastic. I don't mean every day. I don't mean every race all the time, but man, oh man, compared to what I see in other series, I just think the racing is amazing. It's exciting. It's sexy. It's fun. I'm not a big NASCAR fan, so I'm going to just put that aside. I'm not into it. I don't really like stock cars. I don't really care about, I'm not interested in the characters of that series. Like, I don't find the people in that series as compelling. So I'm going to not even going to get into that. But if you're into like the sexier cars, I think IndyCar is a blast to watch. I also really like WEC. I think WEC is fun to watch. I like IMSA. I got to shoot IMSA in Indy last year. It was really fun. IMSA is exciting because there's so much going on all the time. When you have the 4 different classes, there's so much passing. There's a lot of chaos. It can be pretty crazy. I think that's fun. I think the endurance racing as a concept is really interesting. The only one I've ever been to is the one at Indy. I'm dying to go to Le Mans. I need to go while Bourdais is still driving. He's on a WEC team. He's on Joda now with, which is Tom Brady's team. And I was like, ew. But anyway, but as far as IndyCar goes, if you're like an F1 fan and you're like Indy curious, right? I would just say, if you're into actual on-track action, you should try it. If you're interested in the technology, you might not be as interested. But the actual on-track action is very exciting. And I think, too, I think it's interesting to me that there are 9 women that have raced at Indy before. That's pretty exciting. If you're a female fan, I think there's more room in IndyCar for a female fan in certain respects, because there have been actual women who have been competitive. Pippa Mann is a very good friend of mine. I mean, she is the most tenacious person I've ever met in my life. I can't believe I get to be friends with her. She's fascinating. Catherine Legg is a friend of mine. I don't know her as well as I know Pippa. I've never met Danica personally. I'm not a huge Danica fan, but she was unquestionably very good at Indy. And so it's exciting, I think, as a woman. I think there's a lot of room for women in IndyCar, because I think there are a lot of women. There's a lot just more women involved in it, even as drivers. And I think that's very exciting.
Indy Curious is so good, and
I know. First. We all just looked at each other and went, "God fucking damn it!"
And we all were like, "That's delightful." Indy Curious is
Indy Curious. It's for you. You can have it. But yeah, I know that's like part of what I wanted the book to do, to come back around full circle. I wanted the book to be a bridge for people who were curious about it, and like, I think it could be something that, like, for guys who are into it, they could give it to their partners, and maybe that would help them understand a little bit more about why it's interesting. But for me, I just find the actual on-screen racing product to be very, very good, very exciting. I feel like, Barbara was not the most exciting race of all time ever, but in general, depending on the venue, there's a lot of passing. There's a lot of action. I don't like a race that doesn't have a yellow. I a little bummed with the hybrid that it can restart, that they can restart it themselves, because it makes it so that you don't get that yellow throne that's going to mix everything up. But okay, but I think it's very exciting. I think the racing is very good.
Perfect. So we're going to be closing in a second, but for all of our guests that we bring on, we always want to select a song. So if you could select one song that would, be Overtaken or Cam's number one tune or any of the characters, what would be playing in the shop while Cam's in the shop, like any type of music that, comes to life, we would love to add it to our playlist that we're growing with all of our guests.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I have to, can I think about it? Can I get back to you?
Yeah, we can do a post. We'll say, all right, we came back. This is
I'll
the
have
song.
to think about it. I mean, I get the impression that she would be, I don't like country music, so I can't really have her like country music, even though that's probably what we'll be playing at the shop. But I'll think about it. Let me think about it. Yeah, perfect. I'll have to think about that. That's actually a really good question, and I do not have an answer.
Perfect. Stay tuned for the answer.
Yes.
Well, Kate, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to go ahead, take a moment to tell it, like how can our listeners find you, and how can they get their hands on Overtaken?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way is just to go to the website, which is ElisabethOliverAuthor.com. You can buy it from there, or it's on Amazon. I mean, you can just search for Overtaken on Amazon, or it's on B&N. It's on you can order it online from any major bookseller. But if you want to order it from me or get a signed copy, you can go to the website, which again, ElisabethOliverAuthor.com, and it's Elizabeth with an S, not a Z, which is a little bit confusing. But that's probably the easiest way. And I just really hope people like it. I hope you guys liked it. I really enjoyed writing it, and it's been fun to get feedback. Oh, and also if anybody does like it and they want to leave reviews on Amazon or Goodreads, that's actually really helpful for me.
Awesome. And then are you on social media at all? How can they find you on social media?
Same. It's at Elisabeth Oliver Author, and I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads.
Awesome. Great.
Awesome. Well, Andrea, MJ, thank you for joining us as well. This was wonderful. And stay tuned for that song choice. But everyone, thank you for listening. This was an amazing episode. And we promise Milena and I will have our unhinged Barbara moments in the next episode. So you guys are going to have to wait for a second. But thanks, everyone.